wanted to film another short video continuing on working the outer hip muscles. If you watched the last video, this one has a few slightly more difficult options. So if you haven't done the first one, I recommend practicing that first. For this video, you're going to need a strap, a belt, kind of whatever you have, and a yoga block if you have one. To begin, step into the strap, and you're going to tighten the strap about halfway between your knees and your hips. And tighten the strap so your feet are about hips distance apart. Alternatively, if you have a TheraBand, that would be a great alternative as well. Stand in a modified Tadasana with your hands on your hips. I'll be a mirror image for you. Stand on your right foot. Press your left foot out into the strap. And then externally rotate. Turn your left toes to the left. You want to target the outer hip engagement. Keep pressing into the strap. Keep attempting to externally rotate until you feel some engagement. Try to keep your sternum lifted. Now, if balance is tricky, you could absolutely do this next to a wall. Breathe here. 3. Press out a little bit more for 2. And 1. Return to modified Tadasana and take the second side. Press your right leg out and turn your right toes to your right. Firm both outer hips. Keep a lift in your sternum. Now, if you have a TheraBand, it has a little bit more give, so you can really press into it more. With a strap, we kind of have to imagine a little bit of the resistance, but it still works just fine. Turn out, press out. 3, 2, 1. Return modified Tadasana. Let me give you a side view for this one. I want you to see how I'm going to align the hips and pelvis, as it's a little bit different than the classic Utkatasana. Stand with your hands on your hips, bend your knees, Utkatasana. Extend your sitting bones back so that you have a little bit more curve in your lumbar spine. Press into your feet, and with both feet on the ground, press out into the strap. Isometrically, externally rotate your feet. So that means your feet aren't moving, but you're attempting to move them. Keep a lift in your sternum, and keep this nice curve in your low back. Breathe. 3. And keep your weight in your heels more. 2. And 1. Press down. Stand up. I'll face you for this next exercise, but again, use a wall to support you however you like. The main goal here is to target the outer hips. Balance is really much more of a secondary goal, so not required by any means. Sit back, Utkatasana, chair pose. Remember to extend your sitting bones back a little bit more than you might normally do. Keep a lift in your sternum, shift to your left foot, press your right foot into the strap, externally rotate. Firm both outer hips, and to make it more interesting, start to bounce a little bit on your left leg. Keep pressing your right leg out and keep externally rotating. 3, 2, 1. Return Utkatasana, both feet down. Press out, isometrically turn out, shift to your second side. Press your left leg out, externally rotate. Keep your sitting bones moving back. And at this point, it should start to be feeling pretty interesting. Let's make it more interesting. Bounce a little. And just tiny bounces. You shouldn't feel this in your knee. If you do, send your sitting bones back more. 3, 2, 1. Return, Utkatasana. Press out, isometrically turn out, and add your arms. 3, 2, 1. Press down, stand up, and set your strap to the side. Next, I'm going to take you through another variation of half moon or Ardha Chandrasana. This one is definitely a little bit more difficult than in the last video. So even if you don't normally practice near a wall, I'm going to invite you to do so for this video, and I will as well. Now, when we're using the wall, you want to allow the wall to support you. So I don't want you to have the goal that you're going to work away from the wall just yet. We'll get there, but for now, since we're adding a fair amount of challenge, I want to take some of the challenge out of the pose. Arrange yourself so that your bottom hip is touching the wall. And lift up into a modified half moon pose. Have your standing leg bent and your top hand to your top hip. I'm starting on my right side, so turn your left kneecap and toes more to the ceiling. And with your left hand on your left hip, contract your outer hip, float your leg higher. And then return hips height, pause, turn your right quadriceps to the right. This should be easier with a bend in your right knee. Float your left leg again, contract your outer left hip like we did in the previous exercise. Lower, 3 more, lift, lower, lift, lower, and then lift, hold the lift. Option, take your left arm to the ceiling. And if you can maintain external rotation in your right leg, option to straighten your right leg. At this point, it should feel really nice to have the support of the wall. Firm and contract both outer hips. 3. To challenge your balance, look up. 2. And 1. Slowly come down and switch sides. Again, to start, modified half moon. Bend your standing leg and take your top hand to your top hip. Now flex your right foot. Turn your right kneecap and toes so they're angled more towards the ceiling. And again, this is modified from the classic form. Contract your outer right hip. Lift your right leg as high as you can. And then lower. Pause, like we did on the first side, externally rotate your bottom leg. So turn your left quadriceps to the left more. Contract your outer right hip, float your right leg. And lower. 3 more. Lift. And lower. Lift. And lower. This one will hold, lift and hold. Contract your outer hip. Turn your left quadriceps to the left. Option, straighten your left leg. Option, right arm, and perhaps gaze to the ceiling. Breathe here for 3, 2, and 1. Slowly release. Now, after that work, it's going to feel quite good to stretch out the outer hips. And my favorite way to do this is pigeon pose. I'm going to teach you a slightly different version of pigeon pose. Come onto your hands and your knees. Tuck your toes under. Lift your hips up, press back, downward facing dog. And just because it's the first down dog of this video, bend your knees, angle your sitting bones to the ceiling, and press your hips back. Then option, straighten your legs. Bring your right knee forward to pigeon. Drop your left leg down. Turn your torso forward and come onto your forearms. Tuck your left toes under. Lift your left knee off the ground. Squeeze your feet towards each other as though you could pull your right hip back and the left hip forward. So you're contracting your outer hips as you're stretching them, which is a great way to maintain strength while building flexibility. A few breaths here. Walk your hands up and press up and back. Downward facing dog. And bring your left knee forward. Set up pigeon. And to start, keep your back leg down. Turn your torso forward and come forward. And take a few breaths in a more static stretch. Now tuck your right toes under. Straighten your right leg. Squeeze your feet towards each other. Firm and engage both outer hips. Breathe for 3, 2, and 1. Walk your hands up. Return to one final downward facing dog. And have a seat. Thank you for practicing. I hope this was helpful.